I'm focused on his spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about this article from Politico, which is conveniently timed, I'll say that, about a chat that was leaked by someone for, I think, a power trip. Allegedly, it was Gavin Wax. Someone said that it wasn't him. I don't know. I'm not sure about who queries someone to leak the chats, but the issue is that these chats have been leaked. And so people keep saying that it's a bunch of kids who leaked it. A lot of these people were grown adults saying some of the stuff. Some of the stuff are they joking? I would assume. Are they saying things maybe sarcastically and it's edgelord kind of jokes that are inappropriate? Yeah. But I don't understand the stupidity of writing all that stuff down in these chats, especially when you're in the capacity of operating as someone who is a young Republican, because you are a representative of the party. And these are people who have like different leadership positions, and it's just not a good look. And so the Young Republicans had asked them to resign, and some people are mad at the Young Republicans group for asking them to do that and feel like the left is out here celebrating Charlie Kirk being killed. The AG candidate is still running, and he wanted the speaker's child to be murdered. And if they can say stuff like that, then what the heck are we doing? Like, even getting distracted with something like this. And JD Vance weighed in, and JD Vance, his opinion was basically, look at this Democrat, like, I'm not wasting my time with a bunch of kid nonsense. And his response kind of makes it a bigger story because he is the vice president of the United States. So we got a fun thing to talk about today. I don't think JD handled it well, and there's lots of people who are loving what he's saying or what he did, and the not apologizing, don't turn on your own side, don't get distracted kind of stuff. But I do think that there is an issue in the Republican Party, or people who are trying to be the Republican Party. And I don't want these edgelords or these people who have more nefarious sort of ideologies to take root on the right. Like, the left or just the Democrat Party in general became super crazy because they allowed their folks to just kind of keep, their demons continue manifesting, I guess. So we'll be talking about that today and reading through the article. I had read through it last night, but I just want to look through it again if you guys are unaware of it. Someone was like, because I did a quick TikTok about it, and someone's like, why don't you just post what they say and let the people decide? And I had originally filmed the video for TikTok, and I'm like, if I had posted what they had posted, the video probably would have been taken down. So we'll go ahead and talk about it here on today. But before we jump into everything, please go to blacktnews.com if you want to check out more content on the website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, you guys can support. You guys can also check out different merch that's available as well. That also does, support the show, different, t-shirts and mugs and so on. Thank you to those of you who are watching live and to those of you who are watching back later. Someone's like, where's everybody in the chat? Sometimes it takes a minute for people to come in, but thank you for commenting. That does, help people find the stream as well, and liking and, sharing it and all that stuff. So thank you again to people who watch it live. And I appreciate those of you who watch it back, because I know 4:00 is not a convenient time for everyone to watch live. It's not always a convenient time for me to go live. Sometimes things happen. But so I just appreciate anyone who, finds the time to watch it sometime during the day. I do want to say I have a date for our painting party for the online one and also the in-person one, and I do have a link. My sister sent it to me, and it will my chat where she sent it like will not load on this stupid computer. So I don't know if Tina's watching. I'm gonna send her a message. Can you post the link in the live chat? uh, for black tea. So hopefully she sees that and you will see Tina pop in and add the link, but I don't know why it wouldn't let me do it. But for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, my sister Tina is an artist. She just did the thumbs up, so she'll be posting the link soon. She does painting classes, and my painting is over there, so I'm not gonna get up and grab it, but it's not within reach. It's too far away. But she does painting classes. She does a lot of different things, but one thing she's really known for are these little teeny tiny canvases, and she also paints bigger paintings. She also does text portraits, like she might draw a picture of you, but she'll do it out of your name. So that's pretty cool. She does commission work and sells prints and stuff on her website, but she does classes. So last Saturday I was in one of her classes and it was like tailored to like our women's Bible study. And so I wanted to do one with you guys. So one of the things we're doing online, we're going to do a seasonal kind of winter painting. I felt we're kind of getting late in the fall, and I don't know if everybody wants to have a Thanksgiving sort of painting. So we're going to do like a winter one. It has this nice little backdrop where there's also like a Christmas tree. So it looks pretty nice. And so we'll do that. And for the one that's going to be in person, we're going to do like a patriotic one where it's like this American flag and there's the sunset and the clouds and it just looks really, really cool. So those are the two that we're doing. So the in-person one is going to be November 1st, which is a Saturday. So it's going to be Saturday evening at 6. They take anywhere from like 90 minutes to 2 hours to do. And there'll be like some refreshments and stuff as well. And then the online one will be the next day on Sunday evening. So at 6 p.m. So if you're going to do it online, you can either get your own supplies or you can pay an extra $15 and she will ship you the supplies with the paint and so on. So you can do either one, and just make sure that I guess whatever your setup is, like easel, maybe you want to just paint on your table or whatever. But I would recommend like having your phone in hand so she can see what you're doing and like give you pointers and stuff. Make sure you're on like house Wi-Fi and that it's good and so on. And I'll be in her studio when she's like actually giving the lessons, but it'll be really neat. We can interact with each other and have a cool time. And I look forward to doing that online. And we will send out a link to the participants, and I like film and use like StreamYard and stuff. So you can invite guests in there. So we're not going to go live, but we'll have like all the guests in there together, painting together at the same time. So that's how it will work. It'll kind of be like a Zoom call or a Teams meeting or something like that. For the in-person one, it'll be at her studio. So it'll be cool. It'll be really cool. So if you want to do that, that's an option that's available to you guys. And I see that she posted the link on Facebook. I didn't see that she did it on YouTube. So not sure if I can copy that. Oh, she posted it under black tea, under as if she were me. So she let me go to my page and see if I can post it on the YouTube, or if I post it really quick and it'll pop up. I'll go back and edit the show and have it in the summary page on the info about the episode in the description. So people watching back should be able to look back and see the link. But I will post it on my socials for folks. So it'll be a cool time. Anyway, okay. There we go. Okay, there's a link everywhere on Facebook and the YouTube. So for those of you who sign up on the interest form, I'll also like send you the link. But yeah, I mean, you guys can follow yourself, but I can send a follow-up email. Okay. And just a reminder, you guys can pre-order my book Bigger, my children's book. You guys can get it paperback or you guys can get it in hardcover like this. And the hardcover is $25. The paperback is $15. So there's also going to be an in-person book signing on the 25th. And if you live in Oakland County kind of area, Michigan, or you want to do a little bit of a hike to come, it'll be great to see you. So I'm excited about it. I'm very excited about it. And I found out before we get to the news, I found out my sister did the sweetest thing. I don't know if she's still watching, but she kept a secret from me. She kept a pretty big secret. Let me see if she had posted the video so I can just show it off of Facebook or something. But maybe I'll just tell you guys about it. So she for Christmas she had asked for a kit to make flowers into like paint. Like you can take the pigment like out of the flowers or whatever and like make it into a paint or whatever. So she got my sister, she asked for Christmas. My sister Sabrina got it for her. And so I mean I saw her like messing with different stuff and making her own paint and whatever, but I didn't think too much about it. And so she did she said today, like, I posted this video. I'm so happy about it. And I couldn't wait to post it. And it took so long to make this. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. And so there's this one TikToker named Nara Smith who just does these videos where she's like, my children wanted fruit snacks, so I decided to make it from scratch. And she just goes through like all of these levels and she's like dressed in like fancy like ball gowns or whatever while she's like doing all the stuff. So she has a ton of followers on TikTok. So Tina posts a video where she's like doing a Nara Smith parody and she's like, my nieces and nephews wanted a bedtime story, so I decided to make one from scratch. And so she had all her sketchbooks and stuff and she starts like showing her early sketches. And then she mentions that our mom passed away last year. So she's like, so I took the flowers from her funeral and I made paint with them. And I also took some flowers that they gave us on Mother's Day and they were yellow roses. And so then she showed the process of her making the paint. And then she showed that in the book where there's like sunshine, that's from that paint made from the roses from my mom's funeral. So I just didn't know that she had put something so personal into our book. So I was like, I just had no idea. And she kept that big secret to make that video to be a big surprise. So it was very sweet and thoughtful and so much more meaningful now. Like in the back of the book, which she showed the page in the video, I did also add images of my mom, like with us and our mom, as pictures with us when we were little than when we were bigger, because that's like the theme of the book and stuff. So to have that extra like piece of her like in those sketches, and it was really nice. So good on Tina. I will post that on socials myself so you guys can see it later, but I had a nice little surprise today. So anyway, thank you for listening to my spiel about stuff. Let's get to the actual news. So I'm going to go ahead and read this article from Politico. I will share my screen. Hopefully it doesn't glitch. Sometimes when I pull up these sites, they just kind of glitch because of all the ads and stuff that they have. I find it so I don't know how often Politico puts stuff behind paywall, but I think it's funny that this one isn't because they want everybody to see it. I do want to reiterate that I do think the timing of this article is very interesting. And by interesting, I think they want to draw heat away from Jay Jones, who's running as the Attorney General in Virginia. And he had, I think, accidentally had texted someone in, about some like pretty disrespectful remarks because he was triggered because he didn't like there was a moderate Democrat who had passed away, and he didn't like all the praise that the Republicans were giving them, and he was just like, if any of these Republicans passed away, I would just he talking about like I think pissing on their graves and things like that. And then he started talking about wanting how much he didn't like the Speaker of the House, and if he had if it was like Hitler and another dictator or something and he only had 2 bullets and it was the Speaker too, he would have shot the Speaker twice. And so is that a joke that some people say just to kind of display how much hate someone has? Because I it might have been even something like in The Office where like what's the name might have said it about Toby, something along those lines. Because some people try to pass off like it was just a joke. That's a crazy like amount of hate to have for somebody like that, even if you're gonna joke like that. But then he went on, and apparently like the conversation was offline, well, like on the phone, and then they came back with text, and he just reiterated that he the Speaker's wife, he would like their children to die and her to watch them die so they would change their political views, and said something about the children also being little fascists. So that's really messed up, and he should drop out. People need to feel like they're going to get justice. And if you are the Attorney General and you are saying things that disgusting, people aren't going to feel like they're getting a fair shake. And frankly, people shouldn't trust you, and they shouldn't feel like they're going to get a fair shake if that's how you feel. And to double down on it, and to just have the poor judgment to write all that stuff down in text too. That's another thing I just don't understand. So he shouldn't be running his race, and his polls are dropping. And some, his opponent is ahead, or they're tied. Maybe they're just tied in like a lot of the ones I've seen, but it's not good for him. And it's also drawing negative attention to other Democrats because they won't condemn it, or they won't, that many have said they're abhorrent and like, but he apologized, or these were private messages, and they try to just kind of shrug it off. But it's something that people should not allow to be shrugged off, especially just how angry and violent so many people are. And we've seen a string of violence from the left. And in wake of like what happened to Charlie Kirk, I just don't think we should have tolerance for something like this. Imagine for a moment that you had just said that kind of stuff about a coworker and you worked at McDonald's. Do you think you'd still have your job if that got like out, that you wanted to shoot your coworkers or watch their children die? Even if it was a private chat, like if your bosses were aware of it, were made aware that they had said something like that to you, do you think that the person would still have a job, like in a low risk sort of entry level position? I think most people would, say you got to go elsewhere. Like this is uncomfortable work environment, and you need to go to the altar or go to a mental hospital or something like, but you can't stay here. You can't stay here. So the idea that he could win that seat is insane. There have been some really bad Republican candidates in the past. What was that, Roy Moore, who got in trouble for like, I guess, underage, like big age differences in the past or whatever. Which actually he ended up, there's a super PAC, I think, that accused him of some different things. And he actually ultimately won a lawsuit against them. So I don't know how much of that panned out was true anyway. Um, but I'm like, he's from a southern state and he's kind of an older guy. I'm not saying it's right, but I think that was just a lot of folks had like weird age gaps and stuff, but the Republicans came together and were like, not that guy. Okay, if the Democrat wins, we don't want the Democrat to win. We don't want this guy to win. That's kind of icky for our brand. And we'll win the seat back next time. And that was the attitude, and he didn't win that spot. Herschel Walker, he had some violence in his past. And he had different, I think, mental kind of issues and got like help with those eventually. But he was a deadbeat dad. And it came out that he had paid for 2 abortions. And he denied it. And he had his name signed on the check. I'm not saying that it's impossible. Someone could have faked all that evidence. His son certainly thought that he had done that. And to me, it seemed like it was the case that he probably did based on the evidence. And if he had done it, he could have at least just came out and said, I've long since repented of that. But people just couldn't wrap their minds around supporting him at the time, and he didn't win that Senate seat. I mean, there are other issues with like Herschel Walker, but he actually had some decent moments in that debate against Warnock, who was also a problematic candidate as well. A better candidate could have won that seat, but that was Trump's guy. That was his buddy. That was his buddy. Anyway, let's talk about this chat. I think this is timed to draw attention away from Jay Jones. Jay Jones should resign. He should not be involved in that race anymore. Shame on any Democrat who thinks he should stay in and get that position. Shame on the Democrats who are running with him who think it's fine that he stays in the race, or they probably don't, but they are too cowardly and power hungry to say otherwise. But this story doesn't change the reality of Virginia. And I've seen some people say like, oh, wow, the list of people who shouldn't be running for attorney general in Virginia is like piling up. These text messages from this leaked chat or whatever does not erase the horrific nature of Jay Jones, no matter how much these Democrats want to try or the political wants to try. I understand what they're doing, but that doesn't mean that it's not worth talking about. This isn't worth talking about. So you can see the headline there. And there's some of the text messages. Again, like is some of this like edgelord stuff and maybe even sarcasm. Maybe. There's a tweet here about watermelon people. I heard people say that it's about, I guess maybe we can read this again and see if the context is about Black people. I assumed when I just saw that tweet that watermelon people meant like pro-Hamas people or pro-Palestine people, because in their bios they put watermelons because they think it looks like the flag or whatever. So my mind didn't go to Black people when I saw watermelon people, and we'll I guess we'll see more context and see if they were actually talking about Black people there. But what if they weren't? What if everyone who assumed they were talking about Black people are the real racists? Anyway, leaders of young Republican groups throughout the country worried what would happen if their Telegram chat ever got leaked, but they kept typing anyway. And that's what's crazy too. That's what's so crazy too. And I've heard of different people like saying like, "Ooh, if our chat ever gets leaked," like people in politics, I'm like, why are you doing this? Why? They referred to Black people as monkeys and the watermelon people and mused about putting their political opponents in gas chambers. They talked about raping their enemies and driving them to suicide, and lauded Republicans who they believe support slavery. yeah, so a lot of the stuff we're seeing through their eyes as they're writing this article. Like I would like to see more context about the watermelon people, because my first thought went to like the free Palestine folks, but maybe the context clearly means black people. I don't know. William Hendricks, the Kansas Young Republicans vice chair, used the words, the N word and variations of the racial slur more than a dozen times in the chat. Bobby Walker, the vice chair of the New York State Young Republicans, at the time referred to rape as epic. Peter Guinta, who at the time was chair of the same organization, wrote in a message sent in June that everyone that votes no is going to the gas chamber. Guinta was referring to an upcoming vote on whether he should become chair of the Young Republican National Federation, the GOP's 15,000 member political organization for Republicans between 18 and 40 years old. I'm going to create some of the greatest psychological torture methods known to man. We only want true believers, he continued. 2 members of the chat responded. Everyone votes getting to the gas chamber, and everyone that endorsed but then votes for us is going to the gas chamber. When do we start bullying, dude? We have solid 3 people who can have them want to jump. If they vote for us, why would they be gassed? When do we bring that side out? I'm going to create some of the greatest psychological torture methods known to man. We only want, the true believers. Can we fix the showers? Gas chambers don't fit the Hitler aesthetic. I'm ready to watch people burn now. We got to pretend that we like them. Hey, come on, take a nice shower and relax. Boom, they're dead. Can we? Yeah. And the person who said the thing about the Hitler aesthetic, Joe Maligno, that's probably what it is, who previously identified himself as the general counsel for the New York State Republicans, wrote back, I'm ready to watch people burn now. Annie K. Caddy, New York's National Committee member, said, ooh, National Committee member. Ooh. The National Committee member, they get voted in on at like state party conventions by the delegation to like represent the state, the party, and then they get to vote on like RNC stuff. So that's not a small position within the party. Oh no, it says New York's national, they're the committee member, they're national committee member. Yeah, a state committee. I've been a state committee member. I haven't been a national committee member. Yikes. The exchange is part of the trove of Telegram chats obtained by Politico and spanning more than 7 months of messages among young Republican leaders in New York, Kansas, Arizona, Vermont. The chat offers an unfiltered look at how a new generation of GOP activists talk when they think no one is listening. Since Politico began making inquiries, one member of the group chat is no longer employed at their job, and another job offer was rescinded. Prominent New York Republicans, including Rep. Elise Stefanik, and State Senate Minority Leader Rob Ort, have denounced the chat, and festering resentments among young Republicans have now turned into public recriminations, including allegations of character assassination and extortion. The 2,900 pages of chats shared among a dozen millennial and Gen Z Republicans between early January and mid-August chronicle their campaign to seize control of the National Young Republican Organization on a hardline pro-Donald Trump platform. Many of the chat members already work inside government or party politics, and no one serves as a state senator. I'm sorry, and one serves as a state senator. Yeah. Together, the messages reveal a culture where racist, anti-Semitic, and violent rhetoric circulate freely, and where the Trump era loosening of political norms has made such talk feel less taboo among those positioning themselves as the party's next leaders. The more the political atmosphere is open and liberating, like it has been with the emergence of Trump and more right-wing GOP, even before him, it opens up young people and older people to telling racist jokes, making racist commentaries in private and in public, said Joe Fegan, a Texas A&M sociology professor who has studied racism for the last 60 years. He's also concerned the words would be applied to public policy. It's chilling, of course, because they will act on these views. Okay. Sounds dramatic, but it's really bad behavior, though. But the dynamic of easy racism and casual cruelty played out in often dark, vivid fashion inside the chats where campaign talk and party gossip blurred into streams of slurs and violent fantasies. Yeah. So, I mean, people keep saying they're kids. Like, this is one of the kids. He's a 30-something-year-old man, you know. Um, the group chat members spoke freely about the pressure to cow to Trump to avoid being called a rhino, the love of Nazis within their party's right wing, and the president's alleged work to suppress documents related to wealthy financier Jeffrey Epstein's child sex crimes. Trump's too busy burning the Epstein files. Alex Dreyer, the chair of Kansas Young Republicans, wrote in one instance. Dreyer in K. Caddy declined to comment. Maligno and Hendricks did not return requests for comment, but some involved in the chat did respond publicly. Gwenta claimed the release of the chat is part of a highly coordinated year-long character assassination led by Gavin Wax and the New York City Young Republican Club, an allusion to a once obscured inter-niche war that has now spilled into the open. These logs were sourced by way of extortion and provided to Politico by the very same people conspiring against me, he said. What's most disheartening is that despite my unwavering support of President Trump since 2016, rogue members of his administration, including Gavin Wax, have participated in this conspiracy to ruin me publicly simply because I challenged them privately. Gavin Wax, I don't know. I didn't see him say anything about this when I checked his Twitter the other night. He could have since then. I didn't check this morning, to be honest. Some people were reporting that it wasn't Gavin, so that's alleged. We don't know. At least I don't know. Maybe someone in the know knows. Gavin, he got let go from the Babylon Bee, if I'm not mistaken, for some inappropriate tweets or something, and he got like fired like on Twitter, like, hey, I don't like this, you're gone. By I think Seth Dillon. So it's kind of interesting if Wax is actually responsible for this. Wax, a staffer in Trump's State Department, formerly led the New York Young Republican Club, a separate city-based group that is at odds with the state organization, the New York State Young Republicans. He declined to comment. Despite his allusions to infighting, Gwenta still apologized. I'm so sorry to those offended by the insensitive and inexcusable language found within the more than 28,000 messages of a private group chat I created during my campaign to lead the Young Republicans, he said. While I take complete responsibility, I have had no way of verifying their accuracy, and I am deeply concerned that the message logs in question may have been deceptively doctored. At least one person in the Telegram chat works for the Trump administration, Michael Bartels, who, according to his LinkedIn account, serves as a senior advisor on the Office of General Counsel within the U.S. Small Business Administration. Bartels did not have much to say in the chat, but he didn't offer any pushback against the offensive rhetoric in it either. He declined to comment. So, yeah, I was just thinking, like, what if there's people in the chat who didn't like say anything and they're still like just naming names, so they're all like associated with this and this bad behavior, and they're all like, oh, they are a Nazi too. Because you could be involved in a chat and like not look at the chat. All the time. So I don't necessarily, I don't think the framing of the story is probably I don't think it's meant to be totally fair, to be frank, but because even like, well, he was there but he didn't push back. If I was in a chat, involved in a chat like that, and I saw that there was language going on like that, I would have just left the chat. I would have left the chat. A notarized affidavit signed by Bartels and obtained by Politico also sheds light on the on the rivalry that led to the resto- Restorer War Room Telegram chat that was made public. Bartel's references Wax as well. He wrote that he did not give Politico the chat, and that Wax demanded in a phone call that he provide the full log chat. When I attempted to resist that demand after providing some of the requested information, Wax threatened my professional standing and raised the possibility of potential legal action related to an alleged breach of a non-disclosure agreement. Bartels claimed in the affidavit, my position within the New York Young Republican Club was directly threatened. Walker, who now leads the New York State Young Republicans, touched on a similar theme, saying that he believes portions of the chat may have been altered, taken out of context, or otherwise manipulated, and the private exchanges were obtained and released in a way clearly intended to inflict harm. He also apologized. There is no excuse for the language and tone in the messages attributed to me. The language is wrong and hurtful, and I sincerely apologize. Walker said, this has been a painful lesson about judgment and trust, and I'm committed to moving forward with greater care, respect, and accountability in everything I say or do. Mixed into formal conversations about whipping votes, social media strategy, and logistics, the members of the chat slung around an array of slurs, which Politico is republishing to show how they spoke. If it's like, you know, I guess you can kind of see it. Like, I'm assuming one is a gay slur, one is one that you say about slow people, the other one's the N word. Appeared more than 251 times combined. In one instance, Walker, who at the time was a staffer for Ort, talked about how a mutual friend of someone in the chat dated this very obese Indian woman for a period of time. Quinta responded the woman was not Indian. She just didn't bathe often. Samuels Douglas, a state senator from the northern Vermont and the head of the state's Young Republicans, replied to Quinta. In a separate conversation, Quinta shared that his flight to Charleston, South Carolina, landed safely. Then he offered some advice for his fellow young Republicans. If your pilot is a she and she looks 10 shades darker than someone from Sicily, just end it there. Scream the no word, Quinta wrote. Douglas did not respond to requests for comment in a statement or called for the members of the chat to resign. I was shocked and disgusted to learn about the racist, anti-Semitic, and misogynist comments attributed to members of the New York State Republicans. Ort said, this behavior is indefensible and has no place in our party or anywhere in the public life. So this is Bobby Walker here. Also does not look like a child. So someone said I set off the Alexa. and, and it started playing We Don't Talk About Bruno. I wonder what triggered that. Walker had been in line to manage Republican Peter Oberacker's campaign for Congress in the upstate New York, but spokesperson for the campaign said Walker won't be brought in light of the comments to the chat. Oh, excuse me. I woke up at like 5 today, and I guess I'm just kind of winding down now. The private rhetoric isn't. I didn't mean to, by the way. It just, I guess, is my life now. The private rhetoric isn't happening in a vacuum. It comes amid a widespread coarsening of the broader political discourse, and as incendiary or racially offensive tropes from the right become increasingly common in public debate. Last month, Trump posted an artificial intelligence generated video that showed House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries in a sombrero beside Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, whose fabricated remarks were about trading free healthcare for immigrant votes, a false, long-running GOP trope. The sombrero meme has been widely used to mock Democrats as the government shutdown wears on. See, this is these edge lords and like, this is because of Trump culture. This is and maybe it has something to do with it, but the sombrero thing and the like, they want to pay for illegal aliens healthcare. They do. We can go and watch the tape of the 2020 presidential campaign for the Democrats when they asked in the primary whose plan would fund illegals. Everybody raised their hand. Everybody raised their hand. And they are keeping the government shut down so they can have this little provision that's not the only thing, but that there's a provision about that addresses like illegal healthcare and stuff, and they keep it's like in there. So it was taken out. They want to put it back in. Like it's a thing. It's a thing. So the sombrero is talking about how mocking how they love the illegal immigration stuff. So I don't. I think it's a reach. It's an unnecessary reach thing to bring this up and tie this back to them saying that stuff. Now I have commented about. I don't know. Did they say the White House posted it? Trump posted it. I have commented, and you guys have followed me for a minute, that sometimes when the White House posts stuff and it's like very meme culture, I don't really like it. I feel like sometimes it's funny. That doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean it's right. But in the official capacity of the White House, I don't feel like some of the stuff they should put out. And I think if Trump War Room, which is an extension of him anyway, wants to put some of this stuff out, it is what it is. But like the official capacity of the White House, I feel like they do a little too much sometimes. They do a little too much. In his 2024 campaign, Trump spread false reports of Haitian migrants eating pets, and at one of his rallies, sorry, they're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. That was such a viral thing online because someone like remixed it. It's like eat the dog, eat the cat, and people were doing dances and all kinds of different stuff. I was that part didn't seem like that was correct, but that was like something at the time that was going online, and Trump saw it, repeated it, and I was mortified. I didn't like that debate at all. But I was a bit mortified when he did bring that up. It did become a smash hit on TikTok, I tell you that. But he was talking about also them taking over like apartment buildings or gangs taking over apartment buildings. I see that's not in the report because that was actually a thing going on. An issue with these gangs and stuff in different places. But anyway, at one of his rallies, he welcomed comedian Tony Hinchcliffe, who called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage, and joked about Black people craving watermelons on Halloween. Did he say the watermelon joke at the rally? I didn't think that they should have invited him. That was that big rally that they had in New York that they tried to say was like a white supremacist rally. And my sister was actually there. There certainly were a lot of Jewish voters there who were in support of Trump, if they wanted to call it like a Nazi rally. The coverage of that was so disgusting. The joke about the floating island of garbage, there was actually something going on like politically where like that was kind of a thing that was going on with the like suit or something like that. So it's not like people, I understand people got really offended by that and they really tried to make it a really big deal, but it's not them pairing all this stuff to build this really super racist narrative with Trump with other stuff that people were saying in the chat. It's just really, really dishonest. It's really dishonest. Liz, I could point to racist things that Democrats have said and pushed. I get racist comments from Democrats all the time, but the Joe Biden, I can easily and have made compilation videos of the racist stuff that he said and done. Policies that they've pushed that have been racist. It's in their platform. At least it was in their platform. I don't know about it right now, but the 2020 platform that they don't support like racial, like neutral race policies. Like they want the laws to treat you differently based off of your race to rectify certain positions on the past or whatever. They don't want everyone to be treated fairly. They like so I they're arguing right now at the Supreme Court about redistricting and whether or not that they should have like majority black districts. And they're arguing that they need to have these black districts because white Democrats won't vote for black people. That's going on right now. That is happening right now. And they're just like, look at Trump. Someone made a joke at a rally of his. A comedian, a professional comedian said something about Puerto Rico and garbage. Like, it's so dishonest. It's so dishonest. Only an activist left-wing reporter would desperately try to tie President Trump into a story about a random group chat and has no affiliation with, while failing to mention the dangerous mirrors coming from the Democrat politicians who have fantasized about murdering their opponent and called Republicans Nazis and fascists. She said no one has been subjected to more vicious rhetoric and violence than President Trump and his supporters. In the War Room chat, Gwynta tells his fellow Republicans that he spoke with the White House about his endorsement from Trump for his bid to become chairman of the National Federation. Trump and the Republican National Committee ultimately decided to stay neutral in the race. The White House official said that it has no affiliation with Restore Young Republican and that hundreds of groups asked the White House for its endorsement. Gwynta was the most prominent voice in the chat, spreading racist messages, often called or liked by other members. When Luke Mosman, the chair of the Arizona Young Republicans, asked if the New Yorkers in the chat were watching an NBA game, playoff game, Gwynta responded, "I go to the zoo if I wanted to watch monkey play ball." Wow. Gwynta elsewhere refers to black people as watermelon people. Okay, so maybe he's talking about black people. Okay. And not the Palestine people. Okay. Hendricks made a similar remark in July. Bro is at a chicken restaurant ordering his food. Would he like some watermelon and Kool-Aid with that? Hendricks was a communications assistant for Kansas Republican Attorney General Chris Kobach until Thursday. He also said in the chat that despite political differences, he's drawn to Missouri's Young Republican organization because Missouri doesn't like maybe that's a gay slur. I don't know, that they're blocking out. And that's another person who does not look like a kid. Politico reached out to Dandry Herbert, a spokesperson for the Attorney General who also serves as the Kansas GOP chair, and share with her experts of the chat involving Hendricks. In response, Herbert said that we are aware of the issues raised in the article and that Hendricks is no longer employed in Kobach's office. This chat, yeah, I had some back and forth with the VC in Michigan. Chair is a deer in headlights. We have a call Wednesday. Many agree. Did he say my delegates? I will bring my will vote for the most right-wing person. Great. I love bleep. Well, I don't want to say the line myself because how New York Times is. They'll be like, Christina said this. That's what they did to Charlie Kirk, by the way. Charlie Kirk was like reading a line that was like anti-Semitic, and then he went on to critique it, and then they accredited the line that he quoted as if he had said it himself. So keep in mind that I don't like these text messages. I also don't trust journalists. And I think some tactics that they've done in this article itself is pretty sleazy. But so the argument, and I first heard Steven Crowder make this Matt Walsh and maybe made this case first, and then I heard Crowder reiterate it, that the article has the "I love H" like in the headline, and that tweet is not tweet, but message is like what they've really blown up. But it seems like that line there is kind of like a sarcastic, like I'm the furthest right, so I love, so it's kind their interpretation is it's a parody of what the left views about folks like anyone on the right, I guess. And that could be the case. It could be the case also that I don't know, there's some groper type edge lords or whatever that do talk about liking H. I don't know how much I mean Nick Fuentes has said um that he does, or he's neutral, or he's like, well, he was a statesman, he didn't kill my people kind of attitude, but sometimes he's talked about loving H. So I don't know. I think it's a plausible explanation what Matt was saying and what Steven Crowder is saying, that maybe it's like sarcastic, but how much of this article do we have to go? It's so stupid to put all this down in a chat. That's what I just is the most insane thing to me. Anyway, Gwynta, who serves as the chief of staff of New York State Assemblyman Mike Riley, ultimately fell 6 points short of winning the chairmanship to lead the Young Republicans National Federation earlier this year, despite earning endorsements from Stefanik and longtime Trump advisor Roger Stone, which I'm sure these politicians didn't know about their edgy group chat and the sort of things that they say when they think no one is watching. So folks trying to maybe the journalists are trying to just show how these people are connected into higher leadership, but I really don't want people to think that any of those other people had anything to do with their personality flaws. Riley did not respond to requests for comment earlier this year. Stefanik accepted an award from the New York State Young Republicans. She lauded Gwynta for his tremendous leadership in August and had her campaign and the political PAC she leads donate to the state organization. Alex DeGrassi, a senior advisor to Stefanik, said the Congresswoman was absolutely appalled to learn about the alleged comments made by leaders of the New York State Young Republicans and other state Young Republicans in a large national group chat. According to the description provided by Politico, the comments were heinous, anti-Semitic, racist, and unacceptable. He continued, noting Stefanik was never employed anyone in the chat. If the description by Politico is accurate, Congresswoman Stefanik calls for any New York Young Republican responsible for these horrific comments in the chat to step down immediately. Stone also condemned the comments in a statement. Stone has made some wild comments himself, so he's one to talk. I, of course, have never seen this alleged chat room thread, he said. If it is authentic, I would, of course, denounce any such comments in the strongest possible terms. This would surprise me, as it is inconsistent with Peter that I know, although I only know him in his capacity as the head of the New York Young Republicans, where I thought he did a good job. Few minority groups are spared from the Young Republicans group chat. Their rhetoric, normalized at most points as dark humor, mirrors some popular conservative political commentators, podcasters, and comedians amid a national erosion of what's considered acceptable discourse. Gwynta's line on a darker skinned pilot, for example, echoes one used by slain conservative activist Charlie Kirk last year when he said, "If I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified." Kirk was discussing how diversity hiring invites unwholesome thinking. I don't think I read this whole thing. That really ticks me off. You have to watch him talk to Megyn Kelly about and they do include a line when he talks to Megyn Kelly about that. but there was a reason why they're having that discussion, which they didn't care to add the context for that, obviously, because they're trying to tie it into this narrative that they're threading, about how a major airline wanted to increase, the amount of female pilots and minority pilots when the majority of pilots are white men right now. So the concern is, if you're so concerned about drastically and dramatically changing the state, who is the pilot, are you prioritizing safety? So if it gets to that point where people just know that this is the major priority, it invites kind of that idea, like, were they so desperate to get Black people on this plane that they're not like the most suited for the job? So that's kind of like where it was coming from. And gosh, it's so this is really sick, I think. I expected to just really complain about this chat, but I'm like really grossed out by the person who wrote this article. Walker also uses the moniker Eye Patch McCain, originally coined by conservative commentator Tucker Carlson, in an apparent reference to GOP Rep Dan Crenshaw. Crenshaw lost his eye while serving as a Navy SEAL in Afghanistan. Walker also makes the remark, "I prefer my war heroes not captured," and a repeat of a similar line from Trump. And Trump did say that line. He probably, I don't know if he organically thought of that or if he got it from Chris Tucker. Is it Chris Tucker or is it? I think it's Chris Tucker. Who got slapped by what's the name? Will Smith. Nope, no, not Chris Tucker. It is a black guy. Everybody hates Chris. Chris Rock. Said a joke about, he's like, John McCain the hero. He's like, he got captured. Thank you in the comments. It was Chris Rock. So Trump did not make that up, just FYI. And Dan Crenshaw can take a joke. Remember when I think it was Pete Davidson who made a joke about Dan Crenshaw and talked about how he was like they're talking about different new people running for office, and they made a joke about him looking like I don't know, like a porno pirate or something along those lines, because he had an eye patch, and people are like, he's a veteran guy. So he actually came on the show and made fun of Pete a bit. So anyway, Art Gibson, a professor at the University of Dayton who specializes in white racial extremism, surmised the young Republicans in the chat were influenced by Trump's language, which he said is often hyperbolic and emotionally charged. Trump's persistent and use of hostile, often inflammatory language that normalizes aggressive discourse in conservative circles can be incredibly influential on young operatives who are still trying to figure out what is that political discourse, Gibson said. Gibson reviewed multiple excerpts from the Young Republicans chat provided by Politico. One was a late July message where Mosman, the chair of the Arizona Young Republicans, mused about how the group could win support for their preferred candidate by linking an opponent to white supremacist groups. But Mosman then realized the plan could backfire. Kansas Young Republicans could end up becoming attracted to that opponent. Can we get them to start releasing Nazi edits with her, like pro-Nazi and fascism propaganda? He asked the group. OMG, I love this plan, Rachel Hope, the Arizona Young Republicans chair, responded. The only problem is we will lose the Kansas delegation, Mosman said. Hope and the two Kansas Young Republicans in the chat reacted with a laughing face to the message. Hope did not respond to the request for comment. Mosman declined to comment. Gibson said the Young Republicans' conversations reminded him of online discussions between members of neo-Nazi and white supremacist groups. You say it once or twice, it's a joke, but you say it 251 times, it's no longer a joke. Gibson said, the more we repeat certain ideas, the more they become they become to us. A weeks later, someone in the chat uh, staying in a hotel asks its members to guess what room we're in. 1488. Draw responds. White supremacists use the number 1488 because 14 is the number of words in the white supremacist slogan. We must secure the existence of our people and future for white children. H is the eighth letter of the alphabet, and 88 is often used as a short hand for, you know, hail to the H dude. In another conversation in February, Gwinta talks approvingly about the Orange County Teenage Republican Organization in New York, which appears to be part of a network of national teenage Republicans, and how he was pleased with its young members' ideological bent. They support slavery and all that bleep, mega based. He said the term based is internet culture is used to express approval, with the idea often one that's bold or controversial. In a statement, Orange County GOP chair Courtney Canfield Green said the party was disappointed to learn its teen group was mentioned in the chat. Our teen volunteers have no affiliation with new NYSYRs or the YRNF. She said this behavior has no home with Republican Party in Orange County. Ed Cox, the chair of the New York State GOP, also condemned the remarks made in the chat. I was shocked and disgusted to learn about the reports of comments made by the small group of young Republicans. He said, just as we call out the vile and anti-Semitic rhetoric on the far left, we must not tolerate it within our ranks. Members of the Telegram chat speak about their personal lives too. Extensive discussions about their everyday lives include one exchange about how devoutly Catholic and some chat members are and how often they attend church. Many of the slurs, epithets, and violent language used in the chat often appear to be intended as jokes. Mosman was derided by members as a chat as Beaner, and another word, stay in the closet, Walker of the New York, also adjusted in July, though he is the group's main target for the same. The group used slurs against Asians too. My people built the train tracks with the Chinese, Walker said at one point, referring to the Italian ancestors. Let his people go. Maligno responds, keep the, slur, though. In another instance, Mosman tells the group that Spanish came to America and had sex with every single woman. Sex is gay. Dreyer writes, sex, it was rape. Mosman says, epic. Walker says, yeah, that's pretty gross. There is more explicit malice in some phrases too, especially when they turn their ire on opponents outside the chat, such as the leader of the rival Grow YR Slate, Hayden Paget, who defeated Gwinta and was reelected chair of the Young Republican National Federation this summer. So you mean to tell me Hayden Bleep wrote the resolution himself? Gwinta asked the group in the National Young Republicans chair in late May. Rape Hayden, Mosman declared the following month. Adolf Paget is the bleep bunker we speak, Walker said in July. Paget responded to the chat's language in a statement. The Young Republicans National Federation condemns all forms of racism, anti-Semitism, and hate. Paget said, I want to be clear that such behavior is entirely inconsistent with our values and has no place within our organization or broader conservative movement. Gwinta also had explicit expletive laden criticism for young Republicans and states that were supporting or leaning toward Paget's faction. Minnesota bleeps, he messaged, continuing Arkansas's inbred cow bleepers. Nebraska revolt in our favor, blocked their bind and have majority of their delegates. Maryland, fat stinky Jew. Wow. Rhode Island, traitorous C word, who I will eradicate from the face of the planet. Gwinta also said he planned to make one of the competing young Republicans unalive himself on the convention floor. Wow. In another instance, Douglas, the Vermont state senator, describes to the group members how one Paget Padgett's Jewish colleagues may have made a procedural error related to the number of Maryland delegates permitted at the national convention. I was about to say you're giving nationals too much credit and expecting the Jew to be honest. Wow. Breonna Douglas, Sam's wife, a Vermont Young Republicans National Committee member, replied to her husband's message. Breonna Douglas did not respond to repeated requests for comment. Wow. While reporting this article, Politico was examining a separate allegation that Gwenta and the Young Republicans mismanaged New York's organization's finances and hadn't paid at least one venue for a swanky holiday party it hosted last year. Politico's report detailed how the organization was missing required financial disclosure forms and how their subsequent efforts to file the forms revealed the organization was in more than $28,000 of debt. As of Tuesday, updated records show the organization is more than $38,000 of debt. Donations to New York State Republicans' political account must be reported to the State Board of Elections. Expenditures must be reported too. At the time, Gwenta told Politico the allegations were nothing more than a sad and pathetic attempt at a political hit job. But in their war room chat, he and Walker speak flippantly about mishandling the club's finances. Oh my gosh, it's so stupid. Oh my gosh, it's so dumb. NYSYR account be like $500. Balding ice cream, 1,000 Ozempic, Walker said in one message. NYSYR will be declaring bankruptcy after this. I just know it, he said in another. I drained $10K tonight to pay for my next vacation to Italy. Gwenta appeared to joke, but the organization's bank account. I spent it on a massage, he says, of another check that was deposited in the account. Great, can't wait to get sued by our venue, Walker replies. Members of the chat occasionally appear to be aware of the toxicity and even made remarks that considered the possibility someone outside their tight-knit group could view it. Walker seemed to consider that possibility the most. In one instance, he joked about bombing the Young Republican National Federation's convention in Nashville and then remarked, just kidding, for our assigned FBI tracker. In another, he considered the totality of the thousands of messages and he and his peers had written and what would happen if the public saw them come to light. If we ever had a leak in this chat, we would be cooked for real, he wrote. I think that's what that means. So yeah, that's the end of the story. It's pretty bad. Pretty bad. I don't appreciate the people who keep like just saying, oh, this is just like kids. Like my nephew's a kid. He's 10. 15, young man, you can still say that's a kid. When you're 30, or even in your late teens, like not late teens, but like late 20s or whatever, or mid 20s, like these people are adults. I know there's like different accesses to like phone stuff, like the texting and online. It's different than people living in kind of different eras and all the stupid things that you say or might type, be dumb enough to type. There's just more access and ways that could get out. But I just don't understand. I just really need someone to break down like why. And they knew there was a danger in typing up all this stuff. So I'm floored about the stupidity of writing all this stuff down in the chat. And then there's also the issue that they're all like young Republicans. In like they have some kind of official capacity that some of these people work for elected officials or have those kind of aspirations, but they're in these clubs, so they represent something. I can tell you that people at the job I used to work at, like MRP, have been fired for less or reprimanded for less than the totality of like what was going on in those chats. So people who think that there shouldn't be any repercussions and we should shrug it off because Democrats are awful, I don't think that's the right approach. I still think you need accountability one way or another. um I've mentioned many times that one thing that I really like about Christianity is that God holds everyone accountable. Everyone gets justice one way or another, or they might get mercy, but if you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, you don't pay the debt of your sin. He pays the debt of the sin, but someone does pay, and it's him. But I've mentioned this many times, but like the reason why they had to do Passover and like the story of the Exodus and stuff is because the Israelites were guilty. Like God gave them a way to like escape that punishment, but they had to at least do like take the lamb's blood and put it on the door, which of course points to Jesus Christ and him paying the debt of our sin. But and by the way, Mike Winger has a great episode on YouTube about how the Passover mirrors Jesus, and just all the examples are just really, really good. But they were responsible for their actions. And what was their sin? They were worshiping other gods besides God. Like even though they were oppressed and living under the oppressors, the Egyptians who believed in all these other gods, the fact that they still took them on, God didn't say, oh, well, it was like there's a gun to your head and you were oppressed. Like, what can you do? No, they were guilty of that. So they had sinned, and that debt of sin needed to be paid. So it doesn't matter if you're the oppressed or oppressor or what your position, like everybody like gets justice one way or another. So even as bad as the Democrats are, that doesn't mean that other people shouldn't be held accountable for what they say, just because right now you think maybe they're getting away with it. You're still responsible for you and what you say. So just because they can be really, really awful, done awful things, will excuse awful behavior, and Jay Jones is still in the race, that doesn't excuse all this conversations and stuff that's been going on. And they've brought unnecessary shame to the Republican Party. And you can say, well, we could just ignore it. I don't think that's the right call, because I don't want people to dive deeper into these sort of antics either. But it's when you work at a place, or when you run for office, or when you're a minister, or like you have some kind of position and you represent something bigger than yourself. You could be an edgelord working at Burger King, right? But if you want to be a leader in power, within the Republican Party, or any kind of other organization like that, you have to be held to some kind of standard. And so their behavior, of course, they didn't think that their Telegram chat would get leaked. They knew it was a possibility. Now it's out there. And now we're having this conversation, and a lot of people are. And there's this article in Politico, and the Blue Sky Libs are talking about it, and the Democrats are talking about it. They're especially talking about it because of JD Vance's response, which we'll get to. It's just it's not good, and it's selfish, like to not think about how your behavior could impact everyone else. And they're calling all the Elisa Stefanik and other folks who are in office and running for things, and they're trying to tie them to that stuff. They're trying to tie Trump to that stuff. And it's just, I see the game of the journalists. I do. I see the game of the Democrat operatives. I do. But why'd you put them in this kind of position? Why? Why? It's just so irresponsible. So, and I to go back to the point of like, people keep saying, oh, this is just something that kids did. Something that kids did. Young Republicans group is like 18 to 40. The last time I went to a Young Republicans thing, I think it was like a Christmas get together thing. I knew people who were like over it in Michigan. That was probably like 6 years ago. And 6 years ago, I was 30. And even though that was just 6 years ago, I could still go to Young Republican events. I could still run and be part of the organization because I'm still in that young category. So when people think young, it doesn't mean teen. It doesn't mean fresh out of college. It doesn't mean that you're in college. It's 18 to 40. And a lot of these people who are making comments like that, they're millennials. Like I had made a TikTok about it, and someone's like, well, have you just considered this is like Gen Z humor? And And I'm like, some of these people were in their 30s. And they're like, oh, never mind. Not that they can't still have edgelord Gen Z dark humor or whatever, but it's just so inappropriate. Someone said they know better. I agree. I agree. I agree that they know better. They're old enough to know better. And I think there's like, I don't know, the naughtiness of like how they talk a bit, like, I don't know, gives them a little buzz or high when they're saying this language. Maybe living on the edge and tweeting this stuff out to all these people also like gives it an extra kick. I don't know. But it's so dumb. And on top of that, there is a problem on the right with people who are saying racist things, but like anti-Semitic stuff. And there are like the Nick Fuentes Groper people who are trying to infiltrate and become more mainstream. And he had said something the other day because quite a bit of them showed up at Turning Point events to debate. Like I saw clips with Glenn Beck and stuff, and they're just like the Groperization of Turning Point will continue. So Charlie was concerned about all these people who were coming to the college campuses and stuff and really pushing back on um Israel and other stuff. That's one reason why he wrote BB's like, what is with your messaging? And there's nothing I want to make this clear, there's nothing wrong with questioning Israel and other stuff like that. But some people have just like warped perspectives on all this stuff, and they look at the state of Israel or the war or any kind of other things like that in a way that they wouldn't look at other countries and judge them as harshly. And then some people do flat out like say stuff about Jews. Like I can, there was a picture of Ben Shapiro's sister just playing with her baby, and they're like, don't poke their eyes out, you know, making a remark, I guess, about the nose and stuff. And they're like, Christ is king under it, because they use Christ as king not to glorify God, but to use it as a weapon against Jews, because you know, they say, well, that distinguishes us from them, so we want to use that and say, no, Christ is king. And people like Candace Owens know that, you know, she used the phrase and defends it and stuff, and Christ is king, but some of these people are using it for nefarious reasons, and that, well, they'll answer, I guess, on Judgment Day about that. But let me go ahead and show you guys JD Vance's tweet about this. I do not like how he responded, and he was also on the Charlie Kirk show today, so there is a video that I want to show you guys too. So okay, so he posted Jay Jones's tweets. So again, Jay Jones is running for Attorney General of Virginia, and he's young too. I think he's in his 30s, so he's like around the age of these people who were in the group chats for the young Republicans. But he said you weren't simply at so he's talking to someone, and they said you weren't simply asking questions, you know it. He's like, I genuinely was. I wasn't attacking you. I was trying to understand your logic. And like, you weren't trying to understand. You were talking about hoping Jennifer Gilbert's children would die. He said, yes, I've told you this before. Only when people feel pain personally do they move on policy. Now, I think this is obviously worse because, one, he wants to be the Attorney General of the state. And this was only like maybe 2 years ago, these text messages. So it wasn't that long ago. And this is like an endorsement of terrorism, by the way. Like, when you want to see violence to achieve some kind of political end like this, that's terrorism. And it's just really gross to want a mother to watch her children die. It's really terrible to watch any loved one die. It's really hurtful to watch your parents die. But for a parent to watch their child die, I haven't had any children. I haven't had to experience anything like that before. But it is difficult. It's even difficult when a woman grieves a miscarriage. You know, so you're talking about children that they've had time to raise and to know and love and watch grow, and you want to watch them die. and you doubled down on it. It's like you had time to think about it and you're like, nah, I'm doubling down. That's crazy. This person should not be the Attorney General of Virginia. They should not. Okay, so what did JD Vance say? He said, "This is far worse than anything said in a college group chat. And the guy who said it could be the AG of Virginia. I refuse to join the pearl clutching when powerful people call for political violence." And I didn't like this response because I feel like sometimes JD does things that are not he can knock things out of the ballpark sometimes. He does great interviews. He did such a good job on the campaign trail with so many interviews that I thought were much better than other prospects would have handled, like interviews and stuff. But sometimes I think he draws unnecessary attention. And this is a moment like that because his response to the chat, I think, is a bigger story than the chat. Because you don't have to do the pearl clutching. You don't have to do the I totally condemn these guys. We could say, you know, as a father, as a young man himself, he's just in his 40s. He could have, said we need to aspire to be better than this. We need to guard our tongue and have more control over it than this, and make wiser decisions and talk about our fellow man as if they were made in the image of God. And I would have preferred if he took the moment to, again, not necessarily condemn them or whatever, but just try to lead them to a better place as far as their rhetoric, because it is out of hand, I think. But now everyone's talking about, like, why won't JD Vance condemn this stuff? Like, what's wrong with JD Vance? And they blowing it off like it's just a college group chat. It's not just a college group chat. And then he also calls them kids in a video, and they're not kids. You see if I retweeted it. Yeah. I did retweet that one, but that's not the one I play. I said my nephew was a kid. He's 10. This is not 30 is not a kid. So if anyone asks JD Vance about this stuff and he's like, he keeps saying that they're kids. I guess my clarifying question would be, do you think 30 years old is a kid? And just go through some of their ages and their positions. And I also don't think that's a good excuse either, because because when I worked at the Michigan Republican Party, that was back in 2016. So that was like about 9 years ago. No. How long ago was that? I was like, a lot of people around my age or even younger. And I mean, people in leadership were in their 20s. My eldest sister, she was like one of the older people. A lot of people who run campaigns, who consult, who run state parties, like day-to-day operations, a lot of them are young people. If you're an older person in politics, it's because you were probably reelected a couple times, and you've been in the consulting game for a long time. But to do a lot of like the grinding to make all the trains run on time and stuff, that takes just a lot of work, and it's kind of not a young man's game, especially when you don't have that stability. Because if you work in state parties, everything goes by a cycle, and you don't know when they hire a new chair if they're going to keep everybody. Maybe they'll fire some people. A lot of people might stay, but a lot of people might go, and they might bring on their new team, and then the election is over or just like campaigns in general. The election is over. Are you going to be brought on as a staffer? Who knows? And if you have a wife and some kids, it's very difficult to kind of figure out what's gonna happen. So a lot of people, they might do politics early, and then maybe they'll get into lobbying or go to the private sector or something like that, so they can have some more stability. So to kind of blow this off like, oh, they're just kids. A lot of kids are who run all this stuff. So and hopefully you have people who would make some smarter decisions. Now, I know of some people who were let go, who made some pretty important people who did some like brain dead things that were just like, bro, why would you do that? And were let go. And that those weren't as bad as like these chats, by the way, but they were bad. um and just more like just really really stupid. Why would you do that at or work kind of thing. But anyway, let me show you guys this what JD Vance said on the Charlie Kirk show today.
By focusing on what kids are saying in a group chat, grow up. I'm sorry, focus on the real issues. Don't focus on what kids say in group chats. But there's another angle to this that I just have to be honest about. I mean, I'm like an old guy at this point. I'm 41 years old. I have 3 kids. I grew up in a different world, right? Where not most of the stupid things that I did when I was a teenager and a young adult, they're not on the internet. Like, I'm going to tell my kids, especially my boys, don't put things on the internet. Like, be careful with what you post. If you put something in a group chat, assume that some scumbag is going to leak it in an effort to try to cause you harm or cause your family harm. But the reality is that kids do stupid things, especially young boys. They tell edgy, offensive jokes. Like, that's what kids do. And I really don't want us to grow up in a country where a kid telling a stupid joke, telling a very offensive, stupid joke, is cause to ruin their lives. And at some point, we're all going to have to say, enough of this BS. We're not going to allow the worst moment in a 21-year-old's group chat to ruin a kid's life for the rest of time. That's just not okay. Like, we live in a digital world. This stuff is now etched in stone online. We're all going to have to say, you know what? No. We're not doing this. We're not canceling kids because they do something stupid in a group chat. And if I have to be the person who carries that message forward, I'm fine with.
Yeah, so I think that second part was fine. Talking about like, hey, people have to, I want to tell my kids to make some smarter decisions about what they put on the internet because it's basically etched in there forever. And he has sympathy for people who say dumb things on the internet, doesn't want them canceled forever. But I do think it's dishonest to just be like, they're kids. Kids say dumb things on the internet. That's true, but when I think about dumb kids say dumb things on the internet, I'm thinking about a 15-year-old using racial slurs while playing Call of Duty. I'm not thinking about professionals in their capacity running for leadership in the GOP writing a bunch of like edgy edge lord stuff. They're old enough to know better, certainly when you're in your 20s, by the way. And even if you were a teen, like they ought to know better, but they make bad calls, okay? But when you're older, I just, my follow-up question, if I was a reporter and I asked JD Vance about this stuff, like, you keep saying they're kids, do you think 30 years old is a kid? Do you think that's old enough to be held accountable for what you say in a chat? And people could say this is a private chat. Private as in it wasn't like tweeted out or something like that, but you're still talking to like other young Republicans and other professionals and stuff like that. This isn't like you and your buddy just sending chats to each other on Messenger or something like that. It's so stupid and so inappropriate. So I don't like that. But and I don't know how much is just edgy jokes and how many people are actually flirting with different ideologies and how many of these people might be sympathetic to people like Nick Fuentes or whatever. Nick Fuentes actually, congratulated JD Vance on his approach.
I have to say, I've been pleasantly surprised from Vance. And Vance is my number one op. and I have major problems with him. But he has been remarkably consistent on this across the board. For me, when I was banned on Twitter, he defended me. For Big Balls or whoever it was in that, I don't think it was Big Balls. It was another one of those guys. His name starts with a K. I forget it. But he defended that guy when he got canceled. And now he's defending these young Republicans. And I never thought I'd see it ever, but Republicans are finally learning to play the what about game, the whataboutism game. And I think that's absolutely overdue. And of course, I'm referring to the fact that a month ago, you had people celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk. You've got Democrats running for office that want to kill Republicans. And apparently that's fine. But then a Republican group chat gets leaked and it's young white kids. They're being controversial and then they're going to get hanged. They're going to get their lives destroyed. Why would we play along with that? We're in power. They should not be fired.
So my thing about this is I don't want to be like the left. I don't want to be like the left. And people are like, this is why Republicans always lose. Well, we don't always lose, you know. Trump definitely was edgy, is edgy, remains edgy. And sometimes I say this is the administration. And someone's like, Trump never apologized. I'm like, that's not true. He apologized for the Hollywood Access tape. That was something he was saying in a private conversation that got leaked. But he said some egregious things in the video, and he knew that he had to apologize for the sake of his presidential future. So he apologized. And by the way, I don't think if Trump saw all this chat stuff that he'd probably have a similar opinion as JD Vance. He'd probably be like, that's not good. That's not good. And or he might just be like, I haven't heard of that. But I don't think he'd be like, he might like, I think it's smart for Republicans to bring up Jay Jones continuously when people bring up this topic, but you can do that and also say it wasn't smart, it wasn't right, and we should expect young men, especially if any of these young men are proclaiming to be Christians, this is not where your heart should be at, especially conducting yourself in the leadership role. It's just not appropriate, just really not appropriate. And if any of these feelings are actually penetrating the hearts of these folks where they have this anti-Semitism or racism, whatever that is rooted in them, that is something that they need to cast out. And it's something that we do need to rebuke and call people to do better and be better. I don't want to be like the left. And you know what? And Trump did win, but we had won in the past. There was a Republican president before Barack Obama. And it's not like we have never experienced any victories ever. So it's not that Republicans always lose and have always lost until Trump came along. Though I do appreciate many things about Trump, but there's some things that are like, ugh, but there's many things I appreciate about him. But there's definitely some give and take with the man. But we won. We have control of the House and the Senate, slim margins, but we do. There's a lot of Republicans in leadership around state houses and so on, and governorships and so on. We have some victories, and hopefully we keep racking up the victories. But the reason why Kamala Harris lost is because she was so radical and the left was so radical, and they doubled down on very radical positions. But the Democrats allowed their radical left to take over their party. A lot of people were silent, even when they knew some of the stuff that they were pushing was crazy, but they remained silent. And they let those toxic people continue to gain power. Simone Sanders, who watched a video on CNN of a white person being dragged out of their car and dragged by the car and beaten up or whatever, I guess because he was a Trump supporter or whatever. And she's like, oh, poor white people. She was a Bernie Sanders. She was on his campaign as a spokesperson or something like that. And then she went on to work for the Biden administration. The Biden campaign. And then she had was it, I don't know if she was on the news program on one of the major mainstream media shows. And I'm like, they keep elevating these people who are like horrific. That's terrible. But that's their side. And I don't like it. And I don't want that to be what happens with our side. But the more they promote these people, the more normal people are like, I don't want any part of that. And you know what? The Republican Party is looking pretty sane. Even Trump is looking pretty sane to me right now. Okay? And they went ahead and they voted for our side. But if the right starts getting really, really crazy and we don't speak up because we're like, no, we should never turn on our own, except well, there's some people who say that they're on the right that I don't find to be my ally. And I don't think that we're on the same side because I think they undermine our end games, our goals, policies, the West, Christianity. There's so I'm not, I don't like everyone who claims that they're on the right anyway. But I don't want super radical people with nefarious hearts and minds to just go unchecked, and then we just wake up one day and we don't have the wins anymore because the moderates are like, okay, well, you guys are the crazy ones now. I don't want that to be the case. So I don't think we should be silent about this stuff. I think JD Vance missed an opportunity to have some leadership there and steer these men in a better direction by just basically going, well, this is here's Jay Jones stuff. Okay, Jay Jones stuff is bad. Absolutely. And Chuck Schumer, some of these people, and it's so annoying. Like, obviously, this article, the way that it's timed, I understand the purpose of it to distract from Jay Jones. Chuck Schumer retweeted the headline here. He said, sickening, revolting, vile. This makes you want to throw up. This kind of garbage that the worst kind of people say when they think nobody is watching. And where are Republican leaders from the Trump on down condemning these comments swiftly and unequivocally? I'm waiting to hear it. I did not see Chuck Schumer. I might have missed it. So I'll just leave that possibility. I certainly didn't see it on Twitter. I did not see him have words that were that strong about Jay Jones. I haven't seen any Democrat have words that strong about Jay Jones. And I would appreciate some consistency from all sides. But Jay Jones stuff is worse. Jay Jones stuff is worse. And we did just watch a lot of people on the left celebrate Charlie Kirk, smear Charlie Kirk after he passed, to try to justify what happened to him, to seem like, oh, well, he kind of deserved it. He was so toxic. It's no surprise what happened. I abhor that rhetoric. I abhor it. And people still calling Republicans Nazis and fascists and hateful and all this stuff, that the person who killed Charlie Kirk, he believed he was hateful. And they still keep pushing the stuff about him, and they'll push about you, and they'll push about me. And that is so disgusting. So I don't appreciate people like Chuck here who are doing this performance stuff. Now, he probably does think it's sickening and revolting and vile. And maybe he also thought the same stuff about what Jay Jones said, but they don't keep that same energy for their side. I don't want to be like them. I want to do better than them. I want people to be like, yeah, they're the rational, normal side. That's how I feel. Young Republicans did put out a statement, and then there are people mad at them for putting out a statement about it. He said, we are appalled by the vile and inexcusable language revealed in the political article published today. Such behavior is disgraceful and unbecoming of any Republican and stands in direct opposition to the values of our movement. The value of our movement represents those involved must immediately resign from all positions within their state and local young Republican organizations. We must hold ourselves to the highest standards of integrity, respect, and professionalism. That's a good statement to me, but people were mad at them, especially after JD Vance came out with his statement, and they're like, oh, take notes. Like, we shouldn't do this pearl clutching. Well, I think, I didn't like JD's response. I just didn't. Someone said we need to pray for JD. Most hope he will be the next president. A lot of people say that, and I don't know. Um, he could always fall out with Trump last minute. There's a danger to being his vice president. Like you're not, if what happens if you're not in the end in his good graces. But I don't know. It's a long way to go before 2028. Um, I guess it's a decent chance, but I don't know. I think between him and he'll have the edge lord Twitter meme vote, I guess. But I think a lot of people find Marco Rubio very compelling. Trump was giving him praises as the best Secretary of State that we've had. And he is doing a really good job. So I think he Marco Rubio will be a lot more appealing to a lot more people than JD. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of people in the Trump world sphere who aren't necessarily going to sit back and let, JD just take it. But um I want to see better from JD. I'm not sold on JD 2028. Um I'm not. So, if you guys feel differently, it's a long way to go. Anyway, that is there was a conversation that with Abby Phillips that they were talking about this that think I let me see if I liked it to save it. I did. We'll watch this and then I'll let you guys go.
Let me just make one note, because I do think that there's something interesting. Look, I just want to say, I think Kristen is 100% right. This was an opportunity that was missed, right? To say we draw the line somewhere in our politics. And it's not the first time that not Trump, but Vance has seen an opportunity like that and completely blown past it. Back in February, Vance and Trump called for the rehiring of a DOJ staffer who quit over racist posts, and they did rehire that individual. Well, I think let's not get distracted by some of the other parts of this, but why is it that he's unwilling to just say, this is disgusting, this is vile, this has no place in the Republican Party, cut it out?
Yeah, two things I think can be true here. Number one, I'm glad we know who these conservatives are. I think there should be consequences for their words. I don't think this is just a teaching moment. I think if they have a job, they should lose their job. I don't think they should work in the Republican Party. I don't think they should be involved in the Republican Party. I think they should be excommunicated and put on the bench for a pretty good amount of time. I want to be clear about that. I also think that if you are about to be in elected office in Virginia.
Hold on. He's going to bring up Jay Jones. I just want to say, I think they should lose their positions, resign from the positions, and be on the bench for a long time. I don't know if excommunicating them, because where else are they going to go? How are they going to? I mean, they're still voters or whatever. I just think that the on the bench is fine. Just be quiet on the bench there. But I want to see people, I don't know, be redeemed. I want to see people change their hearts, change their minds, come to a better revelation and realization about themselves and God and the world. I think you kind of would have to operate like, I don't know, like sometimes things happen in churches where people need to be sat down. You don't say like, you never be like, some people you do kick out the church if they cause too much drama. Some people you do actually kick out the church. That doesn't mean they can't go to another one, but sometimes you got to kick them out your church. Kind of depends on what they do. But if someone, like, let's say sin and falls or whatever, like, I don't know, maybe someone in leadership and they were single and they had sex outside of marriage or something, and you sit them down, and you sit them down for a long time, and until I don't know, spiritually they're in a right kind of place, and they're fully repentant, and I don't know, I guess you got to pray about where they're at and what the Lord wants. But you don't necessarily just kick them out of the door. So I don't want them to vote third party. I don't want them to vote for the Democrats or something. But I do want them to change their hearts and their minds, and I don't want them to be in leadership. So but you don't have to be in a party to vote Republican or whatever, you know. So yeah, I don't want necessarily their lives to be ruined or something like that. I just want people they should be lectured for sure. Shamed. I think shame is good, especially if it leads to better behavior, and that I want them guided and persuaded to make better decisions, better policy decisions, to believe in better things, and just do better and be better individuals. And hopefully they will find their redemption. But you're not having a platform for a long time because you brought a stain upon the party. So just my addition of his 2 cents. Now he's going to talk about Jay Jones.
And you've said things are worse than this. And you've said that the kids deserve to be hurt.
By the way, Anna Navarro is like nodding her head. She's on The View. The View, Sonny Hostin says the wildest racist crap. So her sitting there nodding her head. By the way, she has too, you know. So but Sonny Hostin, she sits next to Joy and Sonny, and the crazy stuff that they say. Whoopi had to be suspended because of her comments about the Holocaust and Jews and stuff. And she said something super ignorant and doubled down on it. So there is pearl clutching from people who surround themselves with terrible people all the time. So that is what's annoying about this too. Like, I get it. People say that Republicans should just kind of ignore this because the Democrats don't care about this stuff and they don't hold each other accountable or whatever. But I think we still have an obligation to hold people accountable, especially on our own side. But it just dawned on me, like, Anna Navarro is on The View. And she's just sitting there nodding her head.
2 things can be true at the same time. Young Republicans saying this, they should absolutely have the consequence.
But it's not just young Republicans, Ben.
But Keith,
Democrats have defended an individual who said that family members should die.
Let me just say, I mean, these are separate incidents.
Yeah.
However, the same question that I posed to them does apply to Democrats in the case of the Virginia case. And
thank you.
And it's easy to say I condemn that. How hard is it for JD Vance to say I condemn what these Republicans are doing?
To say it, if that's the question. If the question is, should it be condemned?
But my point, and you kind of made this earlier, Abby, is that there are racist Republicans who are currently working in the Trump administration who have been outed for their racism, and Trump let them stay there. One guy said America should be led by white men only. White men only. One guy said this, and Trump put him in the office.
No, wait. Every Democrat talks the same way that you don't. By that same justification, every Democrat wants their opponents to die.
It's 2-on-1. Just let me speak here.
Hold on a second.
I don't know. I don't know who he's talking about that comment about someone wanted America to just be led by white people. I don't know who he was referring to. The quote I would assume is he's not representing it accurately, but no, the Republican there set it up well. He's like, I think that they should lose their jobs. So how come Democrats don't want Jay Jones to lose their jobs? Why is that? And this panelist, this black gentleman, just like, well, how come JD can't condemn it? How come? And it's like, no, we're not talking about JD right now. It's like, I think they should lose their jobs. Why don't you people think Jay Jones should drop out of the race? And they don't want Jay Jones to drop out of the race because they just want a Democrat to win, no matter what. I think there are some things. Republicans and Democrats, they disagree on different policy things. Yes. But this is so radical to have someone talk the way that Jay Jones did and to double down on it and to not even really. And the person was like, no, you weren't joking. And he's like, I told you this, that sometimes people have to die or whatever. That's a justification of like terrorism. I'm not saying that he's going to go commit an act of terror, but he's wanting something like that to happen to the children so they can change their minds on political issues. That is sick. He should not be the attorney general. And that is a way more important story than this chat thing going on. And so I don't like the pearl clutching on the left while they have this huge double standard. A lot of people have been holding these Republicans accountable, asking them, rescinding offers, saying they're not going to work at their office, asking them to resign or kicking them or whatever. The Republican group condemned them. I'm really annoyed with JD Vance because they're talking about him and his response. So he's making it a bigger story. So sometimes I don't think he serves Trump in the right way. I don't think he's serving the president in this kind of way, doubling down on this. He could have had like they said, a teachable moment. And I thought it was funny that they said that because that's what I was saying last night when I saw this. I'm like, it's such a missed opportunity, and it is so needed. It is unfortunately so needed right now in the Republican Party. And he just, I don't know, doesn't want to be that guy. I don't know. So, not that I don't think he can be. He just really missed that moment. So I don't like it. But I don't like the double standards from the Democrats, but I don't want us to have those double standards. We don't win by becoming like them. People may vote for the devil that they know, but sometimes when they get sick of voting for their devil, they don't want to go vote for a new devil. So they'll just vote for the devil that they know. If they want to come over to the side of the angels, they better be some flipping angels, guys. if they're when John James was running against Debbie Stabenow, I heard that some people just kind of felt like there was some stuff that he didn't know, like when he was talking to some of the business people or whatever about different like automotive stuff, which I think he does like automotive stuff, but there were just some people who didn't feel like he was kind of ready at that point or just did enough to kind of distinguish himself. And so they're like, Debbie sucks, but at least we know Debbie. So they'll stay comfortable in what they have unless you can grant a stark contrast that will persuade them to come over. So why would they be like, they're a slightly less worse version if you're going to try to persuade people from voting for someone on their team? So I don't want to be them. And this idea that, well, the Democrats don't fight, they fight each other. They come up against each other. The Democrats are afraid of their own constituents. We read an Axios article like earlier this year about how like they're afraid of how violent their constituents and stuff are. That's why a lot of them are doing this crazy theatrics with getting arrested and all that stuff, because their constituents want them to do more and more and more. Like, and they're fighting with the more moderates and the progressive side or whatever. They're at war with each other all the time. And unfortunately, they're allowing their crazies to win. So they eat their own. Did they not eat their own during the 2024 election when the pro-Palestine people were mad at them for not doing more for the Palestinian movement? A lot of Muslim Democrats stayed home in Michigan. A lot of them third party voted for Trump, endorsed Trump. Muslim mayors, because they wanted to rebel against their own side. They do not always stick together either. It's a myth. Maybe they do it better than we do. But again, I don't want to be like them. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. Please go to blacktnews.com. Check out different content on the website, different articles. Different articles that I have, stuff about Charlie Kirk and stuff about abortion, stuff about all kinds of different topics, with a lot of different receipts. You guys can check it on the site. If you do want to support, you guys can leave a donation on the website. You guys can also check out different merch that I have, different tees, shirts, and mugs, and so on. You guys can also check out different books that I have, like Slay Your Fear, How to Overcome a Spirit of Fear. I also have, of course, Guys Blatantly Gets Abortion, and I have a lot of fiction books that you guys can also check out. Most of them are like young adult, new adult stuff. I do also have my book Bigger that's available for pre-order. There's a link in the description if you guys want to check that out and pick that up. You guys can also pick out sign up for the paint party if you guys want to do that. I did put the link in the chats on Facebook and YouTube, so you guys can sign up for that if you want to do it online, if you want to do it in person, and it'll be really, really fun. Anyway, God bless you guys, and I will see you tomorrow.